Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am here with a follow-up video to the one I believe I posted yesterday. I posted a video with all of my most used products, all of my products where I got my money's worth, or I feel like I got my money's worth. So today I'm here with like the sister video of that, which is the opposite, kind of talking about products that I feel like I have neglected, my most kind of unused products in my collection, the ones where I haven't necessarily wasted my money, but I definitely have not gotten my money's worth yet. So that is what I'm going to talk about today. Same as if you haven't seen my video yesterday, it's going to be the same thing where I don't include single shadows, like magnetic single shadows. I'm not including lip products because I feel like both of those categories are too many to include on their own. So if you want, again, a second part of this or like a version of this using one of those two categories, let me know. Same also with like base products, because I feel like with all my base products, like concealer, foundation, primers, powders, things like that, I do kind of rotate through them quite regularly, so I didn't want to include those either in these videos. But with all of that being said, I'm going to jump into the products. But before I do so, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. Let's jump into the video. So just like last time, I'm going to start off with kind of cheap products. And the first one I have is this one right here. This is a very, very old product in my collection. I've had this one. It's one of my probably now oldest products in my collection. And this is the Kevyn Aucoin Sculpting Powder in Light. Do you guys remember when these were hyped up? Because that was a very long time ago. I know exactly when I bought this because I was living in Chicago at the time. I was studying there for an exchange semester in my third year of university. And if you know how old I am now, I am 30, which means that it was quite a long time ago. To be fair though, I did take 2 gap years, so I didn't start uni straight away after like high school, college, but still a long time ago. And the year where I lived there was 2016. So very, very long time ago. So, you know, in 8 years time, you feel like you probably would have gotten more, like a lot of use out of a product. It should have a dip, you know, all of that kind of stuff. But look at this. Yes, I've used it. I used it a decent amount, I feel like, at least when I first got it. But nothing. No dip, no nothing. And I can't even remember the last time I used this one. I do not contour, which is why I don't use this one. So it's definitely a neglected product in our collection. So I had to feature this one, and I felt like I had to start this video off with this one too. Let's do blushes next. And we're going to start off with another older product. Actually, this one might be even older than that, than the Kevyn Aucoin powder. I don't know, but this one is also quite old. This is the Bobbi Brown Shimmer Brick Compact in the shade Nectar, which is a really, really old product for me. This one does have like a little bit of a dip in it, but like considering how long I've had this one, not enough. So yeah, I barely reached for this product either. I do still like it though, which is why I'm not letting it go, but it's very, very neglected in my collection. I feel like I haven't gotten my money's worth out of this one, especially again considering how old it is in my collection. So another one that I just had to feature. Then we have 2 definitely newer products in my collection, but these are also blushes, and these are also things that I have neglected quite a bit. I wanted both of these a lot, but I just have not reached for them enough since I got them into my collection. The first one is this one right here. Luckily, I only picked this one up in the mini. This is the California blush from Benefit, which looks like this. It's a very fun, bright color. I feel like the camera is washing it out, but it's a very vibrant color, and it is super fun, but I don't reach for this one. I just feel like I don't reach for as bright of blushes anymore, which is why this one is neglected. So definitely one that I need to reach for more. Then the other one is actually quite similar in the tone. It's a little bit more kind of, I don't know, a little bit deeper and less neon. But that is my Natasha Denona Bloom Blush, which is another one that I really wanted. I picked this one up from eBay, so at least I didn't pay full price for it. I think I paid like, can't remember, around 10 to 15 pounds, I believe, so not too bad. But again, I don't reach for this one enough. It is quite a vibrant blush, which is probably why I don't reach for it enough. So this is definitely another one that I do need to get some use out of and put into like my everyday routine at some point. So that was it for blushes. We do have a highlight to share as well, and it's funny because a sister product to this was in my other video with my most used products. And because I love that one so much, I wanted to pick this one up. And I know when I picked this one up because I picked this up when the brand went out of business. And that is a Becca highlighter. This is in the shade Moonstone, which I'm going to try to open up. Looks like this. And this one I have barely used. I don't know if you can see that, but it is barely used. I can still see a lot of the imprint in the middle that's worn down a tiny bit. But I think I can probably count on my two hands how many times I've used this one. And yes, it's not the oldest highlighter in my collection. I have been panning a lot of other highlighter, which is why this one is neglected, but it's still neglected nonetheless. So it's another obvious one to include in this video. Then the last two products that we have before we move into eyeshadow palettes are two also palettes, but these are face palettes, and these are both highlighter palettes. I have them right here. They're both from MAC. I got them both from my boyfriend's sister. I think one for birthday and one for Christmas. But they are this one right here, which is the Flashing Eyes Extra Dimension Finish Skin Finish Trio in Light, which looks like this. And the Hyper Real Glow in Get Lit, both from MAC. This one has like at least a little bit of like brush marks in it, but both of these products are very, very neglected. I have only reached for these a handful of times, and that's including all of the shades. So definitely two products that I need to reach for more, but similar to the other highlighter I mentioned, I'm just panning highlighters, and I'm happy reaching for the same highlighter every day until it's out, unless it's like a special color, which some of these shades in here are. But these are definitely palettes that I need to get some more use out of, because I'm not, again, reaching for them enough. Alright, so let's move on to eyeshadow palettes next. I do have quite a few to talk about, which is why I'm kind of getting to them already. So the first one is this palette right here, which is the Eternal Eclipse palette from Lunar Beauty. This is one that I got passed down, so I didn't pay, actually, no, I didn't pay for it, I believe. But this one looks like this. It is a really, really interesting color story. It's very unique for me, but I just don't reach for it. I'm not drawn to it. I reached for this one, No Pan Left Behind, but I think that's it. I think I've only reached for every single shade in here once, which is not enough. And I've had it in my collection for at least like a year and a half, probably around a year and a half, which again, is not enough. So this is definitely a palette that is neglected to me. I need to make a mental note to reach for this one. It is one that I'm going to rate in my Big Fat Eyeshadow project at some point this year. So at that point, I probably need to decide if I'm going to keep this one or declutter it. Let's do a couple more like standalone palettes next. We have another palette, which is the same situation as the one I just talked about. Another one that was passed down to me, which I have barely reached for. This is the Nabla Dreamy palette. And this one might look like okayly used, at least on the inside. It has one pan and definitely a little bit of use. However, most of that use is not for me. Similar to, like I said, the other palette, I think I've reached for this one like No Pan Left Behind once, and that's about it. So another very neglected palette in my collection. I'm just not drawn to it. I need to rate it again and see what I feel about it. And once again I get to know it more, maybe I will fall in love with it. But for now, it is very neglected in my collection. Then we have another palette which I didn't pay for, but I did get this one like brand new. It is from Sydney Grace, and I got this one in the Christmas in July sale last year. So I've had this one just over a year in my collection, and this is the Mountain Trail palette. This one is one that I absolutely love the color story of, but I'm not reaching for these shades quite like right now, but I do think it's a really beautiful palette. However, it looks mostly untouched. And again, I think I've only reached for this one No Pan Left Behind once, and that's it. Actually, I do think maybe I reached for these shades a little bit more, but looking at them, they look very untouched. But I reached for most of these shades only once. Some of them I reached for maybe like a couple more times, but overall, a very neglected palette for me, and I do definitely need to make a mental note to reach for this one, because these are the exact tones that I like reaching for in autumn, especially. So now, I mean, we're still in August, but like come September, October, November, I definitely need to make a mental note to reach for this one more and make sure that it's not such a neglected palette in my collection. The last like standalone palette I have for brand is this one right here, which comes from Charlotte Tilbury. Again, this one was a gift with purchase. This is the, actually no, was this this one might have been in an advent calendar, but it was a gift at some point, or it was like part of something. I didn't pick it up myself. This is the Exaggerate Bigger Brighter Eyes Filter Quad, which is a beautiful, beautiful quad, but it's a little bit like simpler than what I go for most often. I do really like going for like more extravagant eye looks, and this one is more like a simple no-brainer palette, which is very useful, but most often than not, I don't reach for like these palettes very often. I feel like I would though. If I didn't do panning videos and stuff like that, I might have reached for this one more often, but I just feel like I have so many different eyeshadows that I am currently panning, like whatever time of the year. I'm always panning a lot of variety of eyeshadows, so I always prioritize those instead of like things like this. And if I do go for panning eyeshadows, I usually go for more kind of special shades, things like that, which is why this one is so neglected. So let's move from one quad to another or two other. These are my Rowan quads, which are both very, very neglected. One of them was, again, a kind of hand-me-down from a friend. This is the 75 degrees quad, and I have reached for these shades a couple of times. I feel like I reached for them, you know, maybe 2-3 times each, so a little bit more than the No Pan Left Behind ones, but again, not enough. So that's the first one. And then the second one, have I even reached for this one? I feel like I haven't even reached for these shades on my eyes, which is terrible. And I know I got this one in my advent calendar from Cult Beauty this past December, so I've had this one in my collection for 6+ months. What are we, like 8 months now? Because we are in August, so 8 months ago. And I don't think I reached for this one on my eyes, which is horrible, but it's definitely a neglected palette, and it was of course going to be featured in this video. Alright, so we have two brands next, and I wanted to include quite a few palettes from these two brands just because they are very expensive, so I wanted to be a bit more cutthroat with them. And that is, the first one of those is Natasha Denona. So I have quite a few palettes from her to talk about. I'm going to start with a mini palette right here, which is the Mini Biba palette. This does kind of look quite decently used if you look at it. I mean, not like very used, but definitely looks used. However, again, this one was a hand-me-down from my same friend, and I just haven't used this one enough since I got it. Similar to some of the other things in this video, I think I've reached for like these shades maybe once or twice, No Pan Left Behind, but that's again it. So it's definitely a palette that I need to make a mental note to reach for more. A palette, again, similar to some of the others, that I only reached for No Pan Left Behind once. Again, this is quite a new. I got this one for my birthday last year from my boyfriend, and that is the Glam Face palette in light from Natasha Denona again. This one is definitely neglected. You can see it looks basically brand new. I know that I used all of these shades once, but I think that's it. It is a beautiful palette, and it's one that I really, really wanted for a long time. So it's such a shame that I haven't used it more, but here we are. It is what it is. I definitely, again, need to just kind of remind. That's why I'm doing this video. I just need to make like mental notes of kind of these palettes that I can reach for them more. And again, by the way, not just the palettes, the other things too. But again, it's just so many eyeshadow palettes in this video, which is why I feel like it's mainly palettes. The next one is one that I know it's my least favorite Natasha Denona palette, which is why I'm including this one. I do have a pan in this one, which, you know, is something. I do have a pan in this one. I didn't say which one it is, by the way, but this is the Love palette. But apart from that, I was in Panda's eyeshadows, and I got some use out of that one, but the rest of the palette I neglect. I only ever reach for this palette when I have it in a No Pan Left Behind project or any other project, but again, never reach for this one on my own, which is, again, a very big, like, you know, qualifications to why I include things in this video. The last three palettes from Natasha Denona, I'm very, very sad to see in this video, similar to like some of the other ones that I talked about, because I do love all three of these very much. The first one is the bronze palette. This one I got for my birthday, and I have reached for this one a handful of times, but it looks very brand new. And considering this is one of my favorite palettes, it needs to look more used. So it's definitely one that I do want to reach for more. I'm going to reach for this one in the month of August. It's actually in my Big Fat Eyeshadow project this month. So I'm going to use this quite a bit there, and then hopefully I'm going to continue using it whenever I want to, because I do need to show this one some more love. A palette that I've had for longer, and I just still not showing enough love, is this one right here, which is the Metropolis palette. This is my first ever Natasha Denona palette. So, you know, I do like it, but I just haven't shown this one enough love considering how old it is. I am panning this one though, which means that I am showing it a bit more love right now, but I have taken it out of the palette. So it also means that I am using that one on its own and not as a, you know, entity with the palette. So this is one where a lot of the shades are pretty neglected. I do have some dips, so at least it's better than some of the other palettes that I've shown, but this one was quite expensive, and I was very, very excited when I first got it, so it's a shame, again, that I'm not reaching for it more than I am. And then the same way we have this palette right here, which is the Biba palette. This is one that I did get passed down to me too, but again, I haven't reached for these shades enough, and this is a palette that I look at very fondly. So it's a shame that I don't reach for it enough. I do need to show this one some more love, because I do consider this one of my favorite palettes. Alright, so we have two more palettes to go, and I'm going to try to go through these quickly because my camera's battery is very low. So that brand is Pat McGrath, and I do have, like I said, two palettes to share with you. The first one is my least favorite palette from her, which is again why it's probably neglected, and that is the Divine Rose 2 palette. I just don't reach for this one. If I ever reach for Pat McGrath palette, I do choose other things. I do kind of, again, have to rate this one and see how I feel about it. Maybe I will get rid of this one at some point, and maybe I'll fall in love with it. We'll see how it goes, but for now, this one is very neglected. And then the last palette is actually the kind of sister palette to that, which is the Divine Rose 1 palette. This one has one of my favorite shades, which I do reach for every now and then. It's this one right here. But other than that, this palette is quite neglected. I do like this palette, but it's just not like a color story that I'm reaching for on the daily, which is why it's more neglected. But I am, again, going to try to make a mental note to reach for this one more, because I do like this palette. It's not like the Divine Rose 2 palette where I don't like it as much. I do really like this palette, but I just don't go for these cool tones very often. If I go for cool tones, I go for more kind of like pinkier undertone cool tones. This one is pinky, but like it's just a bit more kind of gray as well. But other than that, it is a beautiful palette, and I just need to remember to use this one come winter. So there, you guys, is going to be it for this video today. I really hope you enjoyed this like little mini series of the 2 videos. Again, if you want to see more kind of installments with the single eyeshadows and lip products, let me know and I can do separate videos for those. Otherwise, I hope you guys are having an amazing day wherever you are, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye, guys.